Hi, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm looking at the brand new Airfix kit of the Supermarine Spitfire TR9 trainer in 1/48 scale. This is the first release of a new tooling of the Spitfire by Airfix with the Mark 9E fighter from the same moulding due out later this year. If you enjoy the video, please let YouTube know by giving it the Imperial thumbs up, hit that notification bell and subscribe to the channel. It's free and a great way to show your support. If you're thinking of buying one of these and you don't have a local bricks and mortar shop, then why not use my affiliate link to the Airfix online store. Whatever you then decide to buy, and at no cost to you, Airfix will have to make a contribution to the running of this channel, and you can still collect or spend hobby reward points and enjoy your 10% discount if you're a member of the Airfix Club. So let's make a start by looking at the box this kit comes in. Here we have the box of the Spitfire TR9 two-seat Spitfire training aircraft. Irish Air Corps aircraft on the front. Very nice piece of artwork by Adam Tooby as usual. On this side is a couple of schemes. The A scheme, which is the Irish Air Corps one from the cover. The other is a camouflage one. This is from Ivor in Buckinghamshire in 1969. It does say here the length is 213 millimeters when complete. Width is 234, and there are 128 pieces inside. You do get 2 Airfix flying hours with this kit. If you collect them, you can collect them to get a free kit. That's if you're in the Airfix Club, of course. If you're not collecting these, or you aren't in the Airfix Club and you can't collect them, you might want to consider sending them to Models for Heroes, where they can do some proper good for some of our serving and former members of the armed forces and blue light responders. The skill level here is 2, so you could make this if you've never made a kit before, but it'd be useful really if you've at least made something fairly recently, just to get used to the idea of sticking bits of plastic together with polystyrene cement, for example, and taking things off a frame safely and well. But you could go from scratch on this really. So let's have a look and see what we get inside this box. Box lid comes off the top opener as usual, and there is a polythene bag with all the frames in it, and there's a smaller polythene bag inside with the transparent parts. There are 2 pilots. Glory be, there are 2 pilots. How about that? So, plastic bag of all the parts, instruction leaflet here, A4 as usual, and then some decals in here as well. But have a look at all these bits in a bit more detail. So frame A contains the fuselage halves. These are new tooled fuselage halves because of course they've got the rear cockpit cut out as well. So these actually look really nice. The interior walls here, so I guess this is part of the undercarriage bay, some rudder assemblies, the instrument panels front and back as well. So the main parts here, of course, are the superb looking sides of the fuselage. Frame B is the bottom half of the wing here, top halves here, and then fuselage framing on this side as well. Frame C, a seat here, various bits and pieces for the interior. The main thing, of course, is the elevator, tailplane assembly, horizontal stabilizers, if you will, ailerons, rudder, and the radiator bodies here. This is part of like a spar, and these are parts for the wheel well. And then finally the undercarriage parts, the exhausts, spinner, propeller, and the engine cover stuck out here like Billy No Mates all inside this very empty piece of real estate of the frame here. So yeah, basically that's all the front end here and the undercarriage bits here. Then there's frame X, X-ray. These are the canopies and windshields for the front and rear cockpits. There's a light that goes on the belly, an ID light as well. The front canopy is closed or open options. Open, of course, is a bit bigger, so it can slide back over the hump of the fuselage, which you wouldn't just be able to do with a piece that's realistically sized for there, because it would be too thick, so it's bulged out slightly to be able to do that. You can choose either. The rear canopy, of course, being a bubble canopy, can just slide back if you want it open. If we have a look at the plastic here, the it's right on the edges of being able to focus here, my camera. Yes, they're quite pronounced. The rivets are quite pronounced. I'm guessing when you spray this up, it won't be so bad. They do look a little heavy-handed, say, compared with, I don't know, Armour Hobby maybe, who have a more subtle approach to it, and in their 148th, like on their 148th Hurricane, and that does very, very well with being sprayed. In fact, I didn't even have to use panel wash on the Hurricane I made. So this is a little bit harsher. You can see here this peg, this hole rather, this is for the peg for the undercarriage. You can see really big, chunky, positive location and positive setting of the angle of the leg, which is a good thing to see. The moulding itself is fine on here. Never been a fan of this part here being split. I think maybe that could be a separate part even. Also this part here and this notch here, that always makes for a difficult fill job afterwards. I'm glad that the engine cover is at least a one-piece thing, so that doesn't have a seam running along it. If it's turning the other way around, you can see here the doors here with their pry bars as well. They need to be cut out if you're going to do open a canopy, and you know, can have the doors open. I'm tempted to leave those alone. It's such a faff. You will, as I say, you will probably find there's going to be some aftermarket that do that and make this piece look a lot better as well. But otherwise, the moulding here at least looks okay. Looks clean enough, tidy enough. You can see these parts are, the gates go into the side of the join, so it makes it easier to clean this off, which should theoretically make it easier to make that joint disappear when the two fuselage halves go together, but we will see whether or not that actually works out that way. The wing panel detail again is, I won't say heavy-handed, that would be unfair, but it is relatively prominent, and that means at least it will show up. Oh, try and focus that back, thank you very much. It will show up when the kit is made. Now what I don't like to see at all are bits of flash like this creeping in. And then if we have a look at the other end of the wing, here, got flash around here and flash around here. Now this is a brand new tooling. This kit is brand new. That should not be happening. Okay, these parts look nice enough. They're taken off. There's obviously been some sort of mechanical cleaning of the edges of the ejector pin points here, which is lovely. But you know, what's this? This is not on a brand new tool. That shouldn't be happening. That's very poor production control. And even, I don't know if it's an optional thing to have the I presume pitot tube coming out here, but it looks like that's been compromised slightly by a bit of flash. So that's not great. That's not a great sign. I wouldn't like to be buying this on the third or fourth printing, because that looks like that could be a little bit rubbish by then. Conversely, on the parts where they actually need things really, really sharp, they're actually not too bad. There's a hint of a little bit of flash there, or mold mark there. But the rest of these parts are really pretty good. I mean, this handle's good. The control column looks a little out of scale, but there we go. Seat parts are all right. There's a piece here. I don't know what this is, but I don't know why they've done a rear feed into the back of that part. Is it? This is a control wheel or a trim wheel or something. So now you have to clear the muck off the back of that part. This is an example where maybe a side one would maybe have been better. I don't know. I don't know what the intent of that part is as much, but generally speaking, these are much better moulded and much cleaner mouldings, because they're the detail parts, I guess. More delicate parts like the seat frames look fine. They look absolutely fine. And finally, looking to our two chummy pilots here, or two figures here. This is the lead pilot, the front seat pilot, instructor probably, as you can see, with their hands that are arms that are separate, and would probably benefit from being sat in and posed and the arms set and then taken out and painted, rather than trying to set them beforehand and do any filling that's needed on the seams between the arms and the body, and then try and get it to fit. The rear seat occupant, pilot, what you like, has a very different looking parachute harness, which is odd. You would expect they were the two together, and actually doesn't look as nicely molded. You can see in this part here, you kind of feel, I just want to get a scalpel in there and clean that out a little bit. And these bits are not as well molded and designed. These are just a little bit better. You can see the buckle detail, the strap part, then the padded part of the strap. You can see more that where the communication wire comes down, and you can see the goggles very cleanly, whereas on this one the goggles are not as well defined, and then this bit down here is really not great. So I suspect this is a pilot figure from previous uses, downloaded as, obviously have these in files and they just download it onto the frame, whereas this one I suspect is either a newer figure or has actually been made for this kit. Because again, you look at the boots here, the sheepskin on the top of the boots and the sort of edge of the boots there, and compare that to here, which is like really pretty awful actually. Yeah, they look like two generations of pilot figures. In its usual style, the decal sheet here from Airfix is split into areas. This area here is for the decals that are common to both aircraft. These are mainly instruments, the walkways, the markings for the propellers, and covers for the gun ports. Then comes the decals to Scheme A, the Irish Air Corps aircraft here, and then at the bottom the decals for Scheme B, the Battle of Britain aircraft. The one thing of note is that these trestle markings, they have a spare set of trestle markings here. If you want to paint this tricolor onto your aircraft separately using your own paints, then you can use the extra trestle markings here as well, which is a nice thought. These are cartograph decals, of course, so as you expect, they're very sharply printed, very good registration, very good color depth, as usual. Apart from cost, I don't know why anyone would ever use anyone else's decals. These are so strong. The color of that orange, because it's a screen printed drop color, spot color, it's not a CMYK it's not mixing up dots of cyan, magenta, yellow and black to make an orange. It's a pure orange pigment that is just placed in place, the same with the greens. So the colour accuracy is very sharp indeed. So you look especially around these roundels here for the Irish Air Corps, and it's the same for any of the notifications, the reds. That's a specific red colour that they've been using. The yellows here on the RF roundels are rich, shining colours. The blues and whites are more blue and white than they should be, but you know, as we said, that's because they were sort of enhanced for the movie during the shooting of the Battle of Britain. You can see here this is a 0.5 millimeter pencil lead in the end here, and these are absolutely crystal clear to read. Very, very nice indeed. So as usual, Cartograph absolutely knocks it out of the park in terms of sharpness and colour accuracy. The instruction leaflet is absolutely what we come to expect from modern Airfix leaflets. Up here, the logo, scale and name of the kit, Supermarine Spitfire TR9, the reprise of the parts, the A05143, which is the product code, and the size again, span 234 millimeters, length 213 millimeters when complete. In the first page, there are 3 sets of the history of the aircraft and its basic specifications, here in English, French and German, and then on the inside the same are repeated in Spanish and Swedish. There are basic assembly instructions here in about a dozen languages, and the translation of the icons again in a dozen languages. And then we're into the pieces. Now it says here all the interior surfaces and parts are painted Humbrol 78 unless otherwise stated. Humbrol 78 is the British interior grey-green that you're probably all very familiar with already. There are many other versions of that. There's a lot of argument over what interior grey-green actually looks like, but Humbrol 78 is the one they recommend. And then it's a very straightforward assembly process. You make essentially a central tub containing all of the flying controls and the seats and all the rest of it. And you can hear the rudder pedals, for example. There are these frame parts that help hold the whole lot together. Seats are here. I can see the beginning of the tub nature here. Then we continue here. So now you can see this is essentially the whole thing is just holding the cockpit area together. And then we put in the instrument panels in, and essentially we're ready. We can then, of course, if you want, put in the pilot figures. There are 2 pilot figures. The one at the back is just sort of sitting there, not doing anything, keeping their hands off the controls, as a good passenger should for the moment. And at the front is a pilot figure with posable arms that you can sit them in there, then put their hands on the throttles and hands on the stick. You could put them in just before everything's painted and up, or all that. Just put them in just to set those positions, then take them out for painting. That would make a lot of sense. There are 2 jigs supplied, so if you're doing the closed canopy, front canopy option, there's some little rails that need to be cut off, and there's some jigs supplied for that. There are also the crew access panels here, the access doors, which you have to cut off and sand down the edges, and they then sit on the side here. I have no doubt there's going to be some aftermarket that will replace all of that for you. Then essentially you have the cockpit tub, as it were, and that fits into the fuselage. The engine cover goes on, and then you're into the controls and the wings. It all looks very familiar from anyone who's made any of these Spitfires before. This all looks very good. Now, the big difference to some of the other 148 Spitfires that have been made, including one I've been making recently, actually, a Mark 5 I've been making recently, is the change in the design of the undercarriage leg mounting here. There's a massive peg here now, which sits inside a locating hole that looks like it's going to be a lot more stable and a lot more positive and secure to get these parts fitted and set properly, which is a good thing. A lesson learned from older aircraft, where sometimes on some of them it just sort of sat it in it and hoped for the best, which isn't a very best way of doing it. The exhausts are moulded in 2 parts each. That's so that they can get these fishtail exhausts moulded accurately. It'd be impossible to do those were they to be sat together because of the gaps in here wouldn't allow the moulds to separate properly. So that's a nice accurate thing to do. Propeller into the propeller hub, straight into the front of the aircraft. Great. And then the clear parts to go on, whether it's open or closed canopy. So that all looks very good. The schemes, as I mentioned before, there's 2 schemes. One is for an aircraft of the Irish Air Corps at Baldonnel in 1951. This is a scheme I shall be doing. As you can see here, they tell you about the size of the tricolor underneath and 10.5mm each stripe and where they go. And again, there's a separate trestle table decal here if you're going to paint that yourself, because it's on the decal, the tricolor decal, if you're going to use that. If not, there's a separate trestle table marker for you. Yeah, it all looks very straightforward. There's not too much in the way of stenciling and things like that. There's some, but not an awful lot. It looks a nice scheme. And then there's the TR9 from Ivor that's involved in the making of the movie, The Battle of Britain. And this is in a more familiar RAF dark earth and dark green over sky scheme. So, yeah, all very good. They do point out here, which is interesting, the code letters are a paler grey, so they stand out a bit more, and the roundels are painted in sort of post-war bright blue and red. In wartime, this is a darker, duller pair of colours, but now the bright ones, again, they say these are so that they would stand out better during filming. And also they were painted to show chipping and exhaust streaks. So artificially made them look weathered by painting them on, which essentially is what we do, isn't it? So that's the instruction sheet. There it is then, not a bad looking kit. The design looks tidy and has learnt lessons from the past, especially about the undercarriage fitting. And the surface detail looks very good indeed. My suspicion is that they've used a lot of the design elements of the 1/24th scale Spitfire 9 as the basis of a new range of Merlin engine Spitfires. And that's a very good thing. I'm surprised to see some flash on anything so obviously brand new, but of course, we know Airfix has had its issues with quality control with its suppliers in recent years. I think in this case it's just a misadjusted pressure in part of the mould. Nothing intrinsically wrong with the design. Anyway, I'm looking forward to building it, and there will be a build video coming online later this week. Until then, thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.